So thank you all for joining, both here and in person. If you haven't had a chance yet, please check yourself in so that we can know that you're here and keep you connected with the 1 Million Cups community. Thanks for signing that. I'd also ask, if you have a chance, share it on social media. If you could like 1 Million Cups Anchorage, you can share the events that we have going on. Bring some friends here to the conversations that we have, because the more people that are participating, engaged, and most importantly, drinking coffee, the better these conversations are, and the more activity that we have here in our community. So today we have quite the speaker. Before I get into that speaker, I'm going to tell you about the mission of 1 Million Cups. So that mission is 1 million to lower the barrier of access to education, resources, and connections for all types of new and aspiring entrepreneurs throughout the United States. Don't forget the coffee, folks. That's an important part as well. So to help with that mission is Mr. Allan Carraway with Focal Point Coaching, Alaska. Now, you may recognize Allan from some of the past 1 Million Cups events, because Allan is typically doing the introductions, but he does not just have that golden radio announcer voice. He actually has that great head on his shoulders and is doing great work within our community. So Allan, thanks for telling us about the work that you're doing.
Oh yeah, all right. Well, I can't tell you how excited I am to be here. This is always fun. I love 1 Million Cups, and one of the things that I love the most about traveling is getting a chance to pop into little 1 Million Cups around the country. And my travels have been to several different 1 Million Cups, but there's nothing like coming home to Alaska to the 1 Million Cups Anchorage. Am I right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is just, we like to say this is the front door of the entrepreneurial community, and I keep my fingers on the pulse of the entrepreneurial community. So this is where, I spend my Wednesdays. But today, for a strange turn, I get to talk about me. I get to chat about what I've been up to. And this is super fun, but it's kind of uncomfortable because I hate talking about myself. So we're just gonna trade on excitement today, on the enthusiasm of the presentation. And I just got back from a really cool conference, so I'm like jazzed up to 11 right now. I know we're gonna try and keep these things to 6 minutes. I may struggle to do that, but if you all will have grace with me, I promise that we will get through this together and we're going to have a good time. Sound good? Now, before I get into let's try that again. I English good sometimes. Before I get into what I do, let me tell you a little bit about who I am and why I do what I do. So I like to say that I started out, well, for the last 20 years, I've either been in business or teaching it. I started my first business when I was 17 years old out of the King Career Center here in Anchorage. I started a vending business. I had another radio and television business. And then I started a chain of cafes in the early 2000s that I ran for about 16 years. Over the better part of the last 10 years, I've spent coaching other businesses and how they can grow and support their dreams and their aspirations of what they're trying to do. I spent 7 years working with the Alaska Small Business Development Center, where I got to work with hundreds of businesses all across the state in several different kinds of industries, all kinds of different things. Everything from barbershops to, well, we didn't do cannabis businesses, but we did everything ancillary to cannabis that we could. Then the pandemic happened and the world changed, and we saw so many things that we had counted on disappear, long-standing businesses that had been around forever. And I felt an efficacy change in my business, in what I was doing. And I felt like I needed to make a change. There was other tools and techniques that needed to be brought to the state of Alaska. So I set out on my goal to go out and find those. And that brings us to our mission. Now, if I've coached you on doing presentations, you know how much I would lambast this slide for having all this text, small font and everything else. Nobody wants to read that. But guess what? I'm going to do it for you, because I get kind of excited about my mission here. Our mission is to bring forth new possibilities never imagined, eliminating uncertainty, stress, and frustration, achieving balance in your life, having clarity to take action. And that's only the beginning. You will experience freedom, the joy you seek, and thrive. That's pretty rad. When I saw that mission, I thought, wow, that is a dedication to the same kind of people that I'm dedicated to. And the more I learned about Focal Point, the more excited I got about what they had to offer. And the more I felt I needed to bring this back here to Alaska. Now, there's lots of organizations out there. I could have gone into private practice. I could have brought up Action Coach or any of those other organizations that are out there. And they all have wonderful things about them. But I would say that I like to say I have my own three-tiered stool. The first tier of that stool is myself. My 20+ years of business experience, my nearly 10 years of business coaching experience, and all of the businesses that I've had the benefit and the privilege of working with over that time. The second tier of that stool is the Focal Point system. Our curriculum, created by Brian Tracy and Cam Frazier. Of course, Brian Tracy wrote over 70 books on sales, leadership, all of those things. Wrote the book back in the 1980s. It's still the gold standard today. Hola, Perro. And now it is the curriculum that we get to deliver. The third tier of that stool is the network of coaches that I get to work with. I have access now to over 200 coaches across the world. If I haven't worked with a particular kind of business, they have. And I get the ability to work with some of the most amazing coaches that have been just tearing the world apart for the last couple of decades. The things that I want to pull out on this slide is the piece that the word customization. Everything we do is customized to the challenges that you and your business alone are facing. And the last thing is the 100% satisfaction guarantee. Who else will offer you that? Will your attorney offer that? Say, I'll consult with you, but if you don't like the consultation, I'll give you your money back. Nope, as soon as you write that check, it's gone. They probably got a courier to the bank before your meeting's even over. So that's what it's all about. So who is it that we work with? Who are the clients that work with Focal Point? Well, there you have it. Traditionally, we work with businesses in the $1 to $5 million range. Of course, Focal Point was so excited to be coming to Alaska. And I have such a passion for small business that I got to lower that number a little bit. So please don't get intimidated by these numbers. I work with businesses that are significantly lower than 100 or than $1 million. And what would we talk about? What are the things that we would do? Well, there's all kinds of different reasons that you might want to engage a business coach. But I tend to break it down into 4 things. The first one looks like a big old dollar sign. A lot of business owners that I work with just want to increase one of those numbers, whether it's their revenue, their profit, their earnings before taxes, all that sort of thing. The second most common reason is time. We all have different stakes in this world. You know, I've never seen in the announcements in the newspaper, born this day, 5 pounds, 7 ounces, and a fistful of hundreds. You know, we all have different stakes in this world, but you know, we all have the same amount of time. And how many times, I can't tell you how many times I've had a conversation with a business owner who said, how do I just get 3 or 4 more hours in my week? How do I get a little bit of extra time in my month? If only I had 25 hours in the day, I could just take over the world. The third piece is communication. We all know these teams out here that crush it on every level. They're just stacking up the accolades. But there's maybe one person that's a little antagonistic to the crew, always has something to say about the new directions and things like that. And if you got 100,000 people in your organization, big whoop. But if you have 4 or 5, that's 20, 25% of your organization. That can make a huge difference. Those are my people. And lastly, the fourth one, strategy or exit planning. We all will exit our businesses at some point in time. I want you to get the best exit you can. And working with business owners, we found that if you can identify 3 to 5 years ahead of an exit, then there's so many tools that we have available to fix any of the challenges that you've had, plug all the leaks, put out some good clean years of financials. And I've seen businesses with valuations in the hundreds of thousands of dollars suddenly be worth $1.5 million, $2 million. So what do? Well, we've talked a little bit about coaching. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Typically, the clients that I would work with me on a one-on-one coaching basis weekly. Sometimes I have some clients that I work with on a bi-weekly basis, and rarely I do work a little bit less than that. I don't like to go more than 2 weeks in between sessions because I feel like if we go that long, if you're not committed enough to meet on a more regular basis, you're not likely to be as successful. So I only do that when it's real subjective. Like sometimes people just want coaching on one thing and I just want to meet once a month. And we can do that. Training, the reason I named my company Professional Development Incorporated is because training and professional development is something that's extremely important to me. And I think it's important to have access and opportunities, opportunities and access to professional development here in our local community. I want you to look at me, look at Focal Point as your internal training department. If you need new employee training, if you need safety training, you have a world-class trainer at your fingertips. We can help you with all of those things. Focal Point has a series of workshops and assessments that are available that can be deployed in a number of different situations on any kind of different topics. And then masterminds and strategic planning. As a matter of fact, Diamond Dave over here and I have been working on putting together a mastermind right here at the Emoji co-working space for the businesses that are here at this location. Access to bringing together, and the concept of a mastermind comes from the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. If you've all read that, you know that when two people come together, that a third mastermind is created, and the two people together can come up with a sum that is greater, or with a result that is greater than the sum of the individual thinking. Regardless of what challenges your business may be facing or what you may be up against, chances are we've got the solution. But the biggest thing that I want you to take away from this conversation is that what I offer at Focal Point is nothing less than confidence and hope and belief that you're on the right path, that no matter what it is that you're doing, you've got somebody who will stand up next to you and beside you and help you as a business advisor, as a business coach, as a confidant, as someone that will help provide that additional support that you need to be successful. And I want to close with something that I'm like super stoked up about right now. And that's my own personal mission that I started on here just a few short months ago. And I call that mission the Pivot Project. I'm on a personal mission to meet with over 1,000 entrepreneurs, nonprofit executive directors, leaders, community leaders, that sort of thing. And this came out of the pandemic, where all of a sudden the world changed just like that. People that you've known forever all of a sudden seemed to be just a little bit different. You know, families got to be really angry with each other. And while I'm not here to talk about all that, I'm not here to talk about the things that separate us, but it made me ask the question, how can we use that experience as a way to bring ourselves together, to bring us closer together? And the reality is, we recognize that through the pandemic, people had to change their business. When human beings are told they can't do something, they somehow find a way to make it happen. I want to capture those stories. I want to hear how people were able to find ways of doing things that they think is common and everyone knows, but maybe they just solved cold fusion or the cure for cancer, metaphor. What if we could capture those stories and bring those into the common lexicon of business, where there were access to everyone? Everyone had access to those advancements. Additionally, I want to know how people leaned into their communities, how people found ways that if your business isn't going to work, how can you help your community? Stories like an entrepreneur here in town that had a tourism business. And of course, you know, March of 2020, tourism did not exist. Gone. Nothing. And they found a way to deliver school lunches for the low-income families that were on the free lunch programs. They were able to deliver those lunches to the children that still needed that food and keep their trucks on the road, keep their employees working and their families fed. I want to capture those stories. I want to hear about how normal, everyday Alaskans changed their stakes in a time of absolute uncertainty. If you know anybody, you know where that went. There used to be a screen here. If you know anybody that fits with, have them reach out to me. The QR code on the screen would take you directly to my website. You can read more about the Pivot Project, my mission, and you can schedule a meeting with me, or someone who would like to be one of those conversations to schedule a meeting with me. Now, I want you to know, these conversations have nothing to do with sales. This is not a sales conversation. This is a conversation about communities and the future. And if you like all that, look at that grizzly dude. There's my information. I encourage you to reach out and connect with me. I would love to stay connected. It's my cell phone number right there. You can call me anytime, text me, whatever. You can check out my website, carraway.biz or allancarraway.focalpointcoaching.com. I encourage you to reach out and look forward to having future conversations with you soon. Thank you very much. Oops. That's not part of it. What questions do you have?
So lots of cool stuff to unpack from that. I think to begin with, kind of rewinding, let's just start with this pivot project. And I'm kind of curious what you've got in mind down the road. How are you going to curate this? Does this turn into some sort of lessons learned or tools, or I mean, it sounds like a absolutely fabulous wealth of information you're going to collect. I'm curious, kind of, if you have a vision of how you might capture this, use it, what you're going to do.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Kai. Thank you for that. And to start out, I recall the story of Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak when they were starting Apple. And Steve Wozniak looked at the concept of creating a computer and he said, wouldn't it be great if we could just build one of these things to play with? Man, that would be so much fun, wouldn't it? And Steve Jobs would say, it'd be better. What if we could put one of those in every home in America? I tell that story because I started out in this project as Steve Wozniak. I started out in this project thinking, if I had these 1,000 conversations, number one, I really want to know. I'm excited to hear those stories. I love people. I unconditionally love every human being on the planet, and there's nothing you can ever do to take that away. And I want to have those conversations. I also thought it would make me a better coach. It would help me to relate more to my clients. But I had a meeting with somebody and they stopped me dead in my tracks where they were like, it'd be a shame to keep all this information to yourself. And I was like, a shame? Well, no, I don't like being shamed, But it was the recognition that the reality was it was right. This is kind of a big deal. And I imagine a lot of people would be interested in what comes from this. So the answer is yes. That's in flux. I don't know exactly what that will be. It may be a book. It might be a podcast series. I may go back and do a series of interviews with all those interviewees, I suppose. I just know at this point, it's going to be rad. It's going to be really cool. And I know that the output is something that I will need to develop skills for. So when we get to that, maybe when I get to 700, 800 conversations, I'm definitely going to be leaning on the community for some help to bring that together, whatever that's going to be. But yeah, I appreciate that question. Excellent. Anybody else? Hit me. I'm ready.
Oh, so, well, the second one I had teed up for you is, I'm curious because you have a really unique perspective of having spent a while at the SBDC doing the work that the SBDC advisors do and helping individuals and companies. And many of the topics are similar to the ones you had in your earlier, part in terms of dealing with people and dollars and plans and exits and, financing. And I'm curious, what's your view now of kind of the role that the type of service organization like an SBDC has with working with business people versus the role of a coach that's kind of overlapping those same areas? And how would you help somebody who's starting a business or struggling with the business kind of make sense of when is the role of an advisor at SBDC a role that's going to be the next step they should take, and when is the role of going out and finding a coach that fits with them and where they're going a good next step? How do you kind of unpack that now that you've been kind of in both worlds?
That's an excellent question. And I would start out by saying, I love the SBDC. I still do. And I support the SBDC in my work and no one can do what they can do. And I hope that they continue to grow and offer their services throughout the state. Similarly, CPAs don't really worry too much about TurboTax being free, through the IRS. There are some clients that may be the only tool that's available to them. And I know that in my time with the SBDC, I coached the SBA Small Business of the Year in 2018 with the tool set that I had available at the SBDC. So magical things can happen there. It is a public service. And we didn't have the tools that I have at Focal Point or the ability to fire a client that doesn't want to do the work. So frequently at the SBDC, when I had over 400 clients, I would find myself having the same conversation over and over again, never building any traction or moving forward towards the actual goals and seeing a realistic benefit being created. I will not tell you that somebody couldn't get exactly what they need from the SBDC. That's not what I'm not here to separate myself in that regard. But I will say that there is no one in the state, I can say this with confidence, there is no one in the state that can do for you what I can. No one else has a 3-step proven process using CGL technology to get you to your goals. What is CGL technology?
Just about to ask if I had to.
It's like Techron. We're the only ones that have it. But when we sit down, I'll be happy to explain it all to you. I also like to separate coaching from consulting in the difference being that a consultant or an assistant business advisor is someone who works for the business owner, doing tasks, business owner says, I want X, the business advisor does X. As a coach, I stand next to the business owner as a peer and support them as a peer. So slightly different conversations can be had.
Allan, this is Ryan here. This is a great segue into my question, which is thanks for defining the difference between a coach and a consultant. I'm wondering, what do you feel like calls you to coaching? You don't do something for the length of time that you have done something unless you feel a real pull to do it. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about like what motivates you or drives you to make these choices and do the work that you do.
Well, if I could just get vulnerable, if I could just speak clearly for a moment. Wow, I'm doing good today. If I can just be vulnerable for a moment. Let me start out by saying that I recognize the skills that I have and the talents that I have. I should have been a teacher. I really should have been. And I wanted to be. I wanted to be a teacher. I realized how much I enjoyed teaching other people when I was young. But you know what? I grew up in a world of Gordon Gekko. I grew up in the 1980s where we laughed at teachers. Teachers were broke. Teachers had to put their own money into their classrooms. My father was the first ever to get off the farm. My brother was the first male in our family to ever graduate high school. I was the second. So I had a great desire not to go rushing headlong back into poverty. My priorities were wrong. Knowing what I know now, I would have done it anyways because it was the right thing to do. But 18-year-old me didn't know that. 18-year-old me chased gold. And I found it. I found a lot of it. I was extremely successful in business and in retail management. But then when I got to that crisis, you have children and you start thinking of the things that you do every day and you're teaching your children lessons that they should grow up and be follow their dreams, and yet I wasn't doing it myself. And so I had the opportunity to go back and work with a coach and work with a team that helped me identify what it was that I really was good at and what I wanted to do. And it was at that point that I was able to bring my world of business together with my love of education and become a coach, where I was able to blend those two worlds. And you know the old saying that if you do what you love, you don't work a day in your life? That's the charmed life that I lead. I mean, on a typical day for me, I get up in the morning, I answer a few questions. I have an opportunity to go and meet somebody for coffee or for lunch. Regardless if I ever get to do business with them, I get to sit and have lunch with another human being and hear their stories and hear them tell me about what's important to them and what they're wanting to do. And then sometimes I help them find a way. And you know what? I can tell you the hardest thing in the world to do is go to sleep when you've done a damn good job. You just sit there staring at the ceiling like, man, I just love being me. And I don't mean that with any, ego behind it. I am truly blessed to live the life that I live and to work with the people that I do. I hope that answers that in a very long-winded way. Yes, sir.
Another one for you. So taking it a step back now to the balcony in terms of entrepreneurship and innovation, you had a chance to kind of scan about how to move into this new space you wanted to get into. And you chose to find essentially an existing program you could bring into Alaska and use that. What's been your experience kind of getting into kind of thinking through that process, and what would you tell others who are maybe looking for something to get into and they're considering these programs that are available, whether it's franchises or other businesses, and versus you could have also just gone out and done it on your own, right? You've got the experience with the other advising you've done. You could have kind of put it together and said, I've already been doing this. I can go out on my own and do it rather than be tied to it. So kind of what was your thought process? What would you tell other people about thinking through that process of where you go and how you develop a new business?
Excellent question. The first thing I would say is skeptical optimism. When you're courting an organization to align with. I've had clients that I've worked with in the past that have pursued franchises, and I've had varying levels of success with different franchises. There are some franchises out there that are very good to work with, that they will be very comprehensive in the suite of services that they offer. And there's other ones where it's kind of like, oh yeah, give me your money and you can slap my name on whatever you're doing. And then, months later you realize, oh, I don't know why they sound like that. Don't blame me. Every bad franchise is from New Jersey or something. So I don't know. Anyways, but other franchises, you can end up getting into a situation where you're locked into a contract for a long time and you're the one that's doing all the work building the brand. So it's not like the brand gives you any support or anything like that. One of the things that attracted me to Focal Point, when I went in and I had the CEO of Focal Point on this Zoom call, and I'm working him in the ropes, like Rocky and Apollo Creed. I'm just going at him about, tell me about this, tell me about your marketing information, tell me about blah, blah, blah. Asked all these different questions. And the things that really impressed me the most were that Focal Point was committed to the concept of Kaizen, always constantly improving, becoming a better version of ourselves. As opposed to a lot of organizations that I work with, like, anyone ever worked with the military or been in the military? I love the military. My brother's about to retire from the military. And he would tell you that his impression of the Army is 248 years of tradition unencumbered by progress. Sometimes it's really hard to get change to happen. I don't have that trouble. The other thing they told me was that Focal Point is rigidly flexible in everything. That they are the franchise for the disenfranchised. So I had a great degree of confidence that the people I were working with were exactly who they said they were, first of all, and they were exactly the kind of people I wanted to be in business with. That's unique. There are other franchises, food-based franchises and things where they hold all the cards, and it can be very difficult to, especially if you want to debrand at some point in time and go out on your own. For me, recognizing I have some pretty significant neurodiversities. So I remember when I was a kid in school, they had me tested 160 some IQ. They're like, this kid's a genius. So tell us why this genius of a kid can't do all these things that all the other kids can do. Like pay attention in class and read a book. Well, come to find out, I'm extremely dyslexic. I have terrible ADHD. I have executive function disorder. And all of those things that I have that make me a freak of nature also make me a damn good coach. So you take the good with the bad. But I recognize that with all of those neurodiversities, creating a system is something that would be very challenging for me. So bringing a franchise that has a system ready to go. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I don't have to start from scratch. I don't have to create my own curriculum, my own training materials. It's all there for me. And as a matter of fact, it's a lot better than probably what I would have come up with on my own. And it's unique. Alaska does not have this yet. So I was super excited to bring that up. Another nice thing that I like about my franchise, some franchises, the sky's the limit. The more you make, the more they make. And mine is capped. You know, I pay the same amount every month, regardless of how much coaching I do. What other questions do we have? Who's ready to get started? Great question. Great question. So pricing is something, the easy answer to that is it's complicated. Everything's customizable. I will say that my clients typically work with me. Weekly coaching, anywhere between $750 to $3,000 a month. Of course, my top package is $4,900 a month. You know, if I'm working with a little bit more comprehensive company or working with multiple partners, then we might put them into that plan. Ultimately, it depends on what you're looking to do, how much time we're working together, how frequently we're meeting, how much of that you're willing to do. I have a program, an entrepreneurial growth program that I can put together. Actually, that one works really well as a group coaching program. So sometimes I'll have folks where 3 or 4 businesses that are similar, they can be competitive businesses, but they all know each other, you know, like coffee shops or something. Put them all through a cohort together, bring that price down to a very approachable place. But also, I have some programs that can be deployed in a one-off, like we have a personal performance coaching program that I'm looking at deploying at for the graduating seniors for high school and college to go through, where it's a 12-week program, giving them, you know, you come out of school, come out of high school, you got all this excitement, you're done with learning, but you don't really know where you're going to go or what you're going to do next. So you end up working at McDonald's for a few summers until somebody gives you a chance to get in at another job or learn a skill at a firm or something like that. Well, what if you could shave that time off and you knew coming out of high school kind of what your talents were and what your desires were, where you wanted to go from there? Working together a program like that. And that's mostly self-directed, so it's less time with the coach. A little bit more of an approachable price. Yes, sir.
Hey, Allan, I'm curious, kind of following up on that. What's kind of the typical way you deal with how long you're coaching somebody? And I've worked with a couple different coaches the years, and my experience has been that, you know, the right coach at the right time has a period of time before I kind of feel like it's time to move on or just continue on. How do you approach the time issue of a coaching engagement in terms of short-term project-related thing versus a long-term thing? What are your expectations and what are the expectations of your client? How do you find the middle ground in terms of a reasonable time commitment for that relationship and for the cost that, you know, somebody is going to be signing up for in the process?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. I kind of liken what I do sometimes to like running a gym. You know, for instance, if I had a gym and January 1st, we're all like, oh man, I had to join a gym. Okay, not all of us, maybe just me. Really? Okay, fine. All right. So every January 1st, I'm like, oh man, I gotta join a gym, man. I gotta do something about this. But if you went down to the gym and you're like, hey, I'd like to join, they're like, all right, great. We'll put you in our 20-year plan here. Just sign up here. We'll bill you every month for the next 20 years. You'd probably be heading for the door, right? Similarly with coaching, it's like that. My intention would be to be available to you and coach with you for the rest of your life, for as long as you need. But the thought of working with somebody for a number of years could be pretty freaking scary, you know? So we find the biggest thing in coaching, all of the knowledge that I have, the certifications, none of that matters if we don't connect. If we can't connect, If you don't feel you can communicate with me or that I can teach you, none of that matters. And so as long as we have that, we continue to work together. But if we get to a point where you need help in an area I just can't help you with, or we've solved all your problems, you're on top of the world, you're a Hall of Fame business, great, we part as friends. And there's no harm, no foul there. As a matter of fact, I do have a money back guarantee. I will say one of the things that really attracted me with Focal Point is in my discovery conversations with other coaches, every single one of them had a client they're still working with that they signed in their first year of business. Some of them over 15 years. And what that tells me, I have 72 sessions in the can, 72 sessions I can go through on clarity, effectiveness, growth, sales, leadership. We get through 72 modules, what, couple of years? That's a lot of value that's being created beyond just the curriculum. So the answer is, it's as long as you need it. And the reality is that when I've worked with clients and helped them achieve some of those goals, how likely are they going to want to take their foot off the accelerator? They're going to look at me and be like, if I help someone grow their business $100,000 in a year, they usually love me. So,
We all love you. We didn't have to pay for it.
That's right.
Allan, I'm wondering about who it is that you love. Who are the sorts of clients or people that you want to work with? Who's your dream person? If somebody were to walk in your door, you'd be like, yeah, I want to work with you. I mean, do you just kind of like take anybody who shows up, or are you looking for specific things?
No, that's a great question. I have one rule that is hard and fast in my business. I will not work with any business that does not have a community bend in one way or another. Whether that is they sponsor a Little League team, or all of their staff participates in a Habitat for Humanity growth, or whatever. My goal, what I'm wanting to do, is create a future of better entrepreneurs. And I don't mean just better skilled entrepreneurs. I mean better people. I ask the question frequently, if you go to the soup kitchen on December 20th, who are you likely to see there? Thank you for coming. Who are you likely to see there? Probably everybody. You see your senator, your mayor, your governor, your community leaders, they're all shelling out soup December 20th. Who's there today? Who's giving out soup today? And likely it's the people that were standing in that same line 2 weeks ago. Which makes me ask the question, why is it that the people that have the least to give are the ones that do all the giving in this world? And what would happen if those were the people that we poured our skills and our expertise in? Could they build a better world? Could they build a world, if their dreams were realized, could they build a world that was more inclusive, that was more supportive of the needs in the community? And this is not a left or a right thing. It's not a political thing. It's a human being thing. It's about being, community minded. So for me, the only rule is they have to have some connection to the community. There has to be something that they're doing in the community, or they have to be wanting to create those avenues to do things in the community. That said, I work with a lot of medical businesses. Half of my clients right now are in the medical field. I work with a few startups, and I always have space for some pro bono. I almost said pro bono. Pro bono clients. I always have space for some pro bono clients, for some folks in the community that I'm wanting to. And in the long-term scheme of things, as Focal Point continues to grow, I bring on associate coaches and other things like that. As we continue to grow, a focus of Focal Point Coaching and Professional Development Incorporated is to continue doing these community events, participating in things like Startup Weekend and Startup Week, doing the events with the DBE conference, the Small Business Administration. As a matter of fact, this year I was selected as the Alaska coach for the SBA Thrive program. So my goal is to do a lot of good stuff on the business side so I can do a lot of cool stuff on the community side. But thank you, that's an excellent question. Sweet. All right, I think we got it.
So Ellen, our last question for today is, what could we as a community do to help support you?
Yeah, all right, well, let's talk about that. That's super easy. Right now, what I'm looking for are those 1,000 conversations. I want to know who those are going to be. So if you know somebody I need to talk to, plug them in, send them to my website. You can email me and give me their name. I'll reach out and contact them, whatever. And that said, in addition to that, if you recognize that you're in a spot in your business where it would help you to have a conversation with a coach, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about a conversation. Call me, let's talk. If you know somebody that's in a nonprofit that just needs to up their skills a little bit so they can step to that next level, I can help them. Or if you know community leaders that need help being more effective or building those communicative skills to be more successful in their work in the community, send them to me. And lastly, I like to say, who do you know that if I work with them will make your life easier? Send them to me. And that's all I got.
That's excellent, Alan. Well, thank you for speaking today at 1 Million Cups. Something tells me that we will see you again here soon, helping to caffeinate and converse here in the Anchorage community. For those who haven't had a chance yet, please sign in and share today's event with those out in the community if you think that this is a conversation worth having with others. Now, we're going to go off of Zoom here because the magic actually happens in the room. And so we're going to keep talking as folks. So hopefully we will see you here in person next time. And thank you. And before I completely shut down the show, I want to make sure that we have a little bit of space for some community announcements. So I'm wondering if there's anyone here or online who has a community event or announcement that you'd like to share. David.
Yes. Friday here at Emoja from 12 to 1:30, we're going to have a presentation. They're going to come in and teach about finance and housing if you're in the market of buying a house and stuff like that. So that'll be this Friday at 12 o'clock.
I was just curious, is that a free event or is there?
It's a free event, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
and if you have something planned for next Wednesday?
Oh, yes, thank you for, next Wednesday, which is May 3rd, we're doing the 1 Million Cup brunch. So it'll be extended for 10 to 11:30. And we'll have a brunch plus kind of discuss what's coming up for 1 Million Cups. And then I will be presenting for Emoja. So will be the presentation then. Yeah.
Well, that's very exciting. Some food, and we get to hear about Emoja, which happens to be one of our supporters for 1 Million Cups. Any other announcements?
Sure, always a couple. First off, this afternoon from I think 1 until 6 is a co-working pop-up over at the Writers Block, being sponsored by the Alaska Independent Workers Alliance. And so I encourage folks that are interested in that to go check out what's going on there and say hi to that group. Tomorrow, 1 o'clock is Health Tie at they're doing their bi-weekly health tech presentation. And then in the chat is the link for the May 11th Alaska Angel Conference event that's been moved to Anchorage. So it should be a great event. I think they're doing it over at the library, and I encourage folks to sign up and plan on attending that and seeing the final pitches. And the digest is out yesterday. If you haven't had a chance to see that, there's a bunch more additional events and news that is available there, as well as encourage people to sign up to get it in your email each week. And I don't know, Melanie, if there's more you want to say about the Angel Conference or anything else you've got going on.
No, the Angel Conference is the big one, May 11th at the Lusac Library the evening. So we'll open the doors at 5, start the pitches at 5:30. It will also be live streamed for those that can't join in person. And then we're figuring out what the after party will look like for those that can't come at 5:30 for the live event. It's going to happen at the Lusac Theater. Encourage all of you to come. The companies that are pitching this year that are the 4 finalists are Prismatext, Elevated Oats, Evergreen Compliance, and Get By. And one of those 4 companies, we're currently doing due diligence as investors. One of those 4 companies will be invested in venture capital style, $100,000 in that company. So I encourage all of you to come support those startups. If you have your own business and want to see what great pitches by companies look like, I highly encourage you to come, or at the very least to be with this community and have a great evening.
Right, I'll just tag on to that. Get By got, I think, 2nd place at the Alaska Innovation, or Arctic Innovation Competition Saturday up in Fairbanks. So another shout out to Dimitrios and his work with that business. It's great to see the progress and the engagement he's had in the community and the events we've got going on. He's been here before, and it's great news for him. So congratulations out to him.
All right, excellent, folks. Any other announcements in the room? Okay, well, thanks again to Umoja, Alaska Coffee Company, and AKB3 for helping to host the 1Mcups Anchorage events. We'll look forward to hearing from you and seeing you again next week. Thank you very much.